around the world. This is a true radio program, a true radio variety broadcast. We broadcast music, talk, sports, comedy, entertainment, and a whole lot more. And on Wednesdays, as usual, we give you tax tips and investment strategies. And with that, hey, welcome to the set, my friend, Mr. Everett James. Hey, Ev.
Hey, thank you.
All right, very good, sir. So,
Okay.
what's on the agenda today?
Okay. Well, we're going to just update, of course, on the government shutdown, and the we're going to quickly mention a few things about the shutdown and the issues involved in this shutdown that we've been experiencing, and then I'll share with you a couple of articles that bear on that issue. And with the balance of the time, we will focus on what you can do to prepare for the 2025 tax filing season, because we're only approximately just a little about just under 6 weeks from the end of the year, and I'm sure that the folks will appreciate some tips on what you can do at this late point in the year.
Okay. All right. I'm going to step aside and enjoy the show.
Okay, thank you so much. And to begin with, folks, welcome. This is Everett James, your trusty tax reporter, who comes on every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. on the West Coast and 1 p.m. on the East Coast. The show looks forward to your participation. Please send in your questions and comments. We will act on them immediately. That is, any questions will be answered in the following week's program. So please submit your questions. Everett James, my contact point is 951 522 9877. That's 951 522 9877. And the email address, folks, is evjtax1 at gmail.com. That's evjtax1 at gmail.com. And the one is just, you don't have to spell it out, it's just a numeral. And we'll make every attempt to repeat that information before the end of the hour. Okay, folks, to begin with, I'm going to give a shout out and a brief promotion on a baseball team of 9 and 10-year-olds here in Southern California, in the Riverside area. The parents of a 9 and 10-year-old baseball player had thus far been shouldering the expenses for their travels. As you know, in order for a young person to participate in some of these activities at that age, 9 and 10-year-olds, it averages about $150 to $400 a month that the parent shoulder. And this particular team has excelled in their capacity, winning a lot of games, and as a result, getting a lot of offers to play not only in state California but out of the state. Most recently in Arizona, and they're now the parents. Mr. and Mrs. Jason Wooten, Wooten. Please write it down if you would like to contribute in any way to this young 9 and 10-year-old group of boys who had shown extremely good baseball habits and have been rewarded by their wins. The the phone number, if you would like to contribute to this deserving group of young boys, is 951-534-3838. Okay, again, 951-534-3838. A few more comments. The parents thus far, this baseball team, are called the Riverside United Baseball Club. It's been in existence since 2023, so it's been in existence for just under 2 years. Now, the team is not a for-profit youth baseball team. It's not a for-profit. It's a not-for-profit baseball team. Unlike traditional baseball clubs, as I mentioned, all their expenses have to be funded out of pocket from Jason and Cicely Wooten's pocketbooks. All the boys come from low income households. Their skills really have surpassed the norm. And at this point, the parents of the boys are finding that they need to expand their resource base. They have been playing in and out of the state of California and winning just about all of their games. And of course, with the higher win rates, they're getting more and more options to play out of state. But the team really does need help to get them through this season. If you can possibly respond to what is happening in your heart, please let it move to the point of some type of a donation or in-kind donation, such as they are looking for matching team cleats, helmets, team jerseys, batting gloves, and also they're trying to get a team matching equipment bag. So if somebody wants to pay for those things, or would rather pick up the tab or at least contribute to the tab of their hotel expenses, they would greatly appreciate your efforts and will be rewarded with a chance to see them play in the future. So again, their phone number 951-534-3838. Okay, folks, we're all looking for a conclusive end to this government shutdown, and it's getting to the point where even Google and other resources are playing games with the public as far as giving them a straight answer whether the thing is shut down or not. But I think that there is some holdups. They have passed legislation which would indicate that, but no news sources yet has just come out and said flatly that the government has shut down. I think they're still in the process of getting the total legislative approval for that process. Okay, so and this worker will, this broadcaster will keep you up to date, on that. As usual, as you may have heard, the a conflict between the two sides of the aisle have to do with bailing out, basically, the Unaffordable Care Act, which uh, uh, um, uh, was originally agreed by both sides years ago to expire at the end of this year, 2025. So basically, another 6 weeks or so. If the subsidies are not approved, which they have not been approved thus far in the legislative consensus that has been reached, if that does not take place by the end of this year, those subsidies are not renewed, or reinstated, then the tab for the taxpayer who is covered by Obamacare, um, the those subsidies will not be provided at all. So we're basically legislatively, whatever has happened thus far in the Senate and the House have not approved, as of this moment, the extension of those Obamacare subsidies. And let me share with you an article, from the from one of the news sources that I use, Washington Examiner, and it's called Tiana's Take, entitled or dated November 19, 2025. And the title of the article is "Not One More Taxpayer Dime to Bail Out the Unaffordable Care Act." So, in a recent post, Amy Klobuchar, a Democrat from Minnesota, she complained that without taxpayers shelling out another 350 billion to 450 billion on extending the enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies, many retirees will see their health insurance premiums increase nearly 300%, from $42 to $1,700 a month. If Democrats do not succeed in increasing the trillion-dollar cost of the Affordable Care Act's baseline subsidies by another 40%, in extending the enhancements, this is going to require the enrollees to face some pretty tough financial and lifestyle decisions, either pulling more money from retirement savings, claiming Social Security earlier than planned, or locking in lower lifetime benefits, or putting off new non-mandatory medical care and traveling less. Well, if many people are following the norm, many of them are indicating that that we should not be, the legislative component of our government cannot budge a single inch on extending the enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies. One time you just heard them describe the subsidies as just the Affordable Care Act subsidies, but now you've got the news media that's tacked on of enhanced. So it's an enhanced situation. And that follows along with what's happened with Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal, once it has been approved, it has been through a great deal of manipulation on the state government's parts of all of the government, all of the state in the union. They've gone around the bush, extending the enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, in addition to entitling folks who are not citizens of the country, in addition to entitle them to various Medicare benefits, um, they've come on with states have manipulated their budgets to even increase the level of Medi-Cal funding for folks who are not here legally. So you will recall that Biden's enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies expanded the eligibility to include illegal immigrants in American households earning between 400 and about between 400 and 100% of federal poverty level. That's almost $129,000 a year, and but they expanded their benefits to more than to folks whose income reached $500,000. Now, only 7% of the public receives Affordable Care Acts at all. Only 7%. And the overwhelming majority of the benefits of the enhanced subsidies goes to those middle class and wealthy earners. Should they be receiving coverage when our United States federal budget is really not even in a position to pay out and cover the basic Medi-Cal benefits. Should the enhanced subsidies expire, the premiums paid by households at the federal poverty level, at $32,150 annually for a family of four, that will rise from zero to about 2% of their monthly income, about $55 per month. So this is a question that is being grappled with. Let me share another article from the Washington Examiner, that is Washington, D.C. Examiner, entitled Chuck Schumer's Shutdown Agony. And this is a recent article. If you listen carefully, you can hear two distinct sounds, one of anxiety, the other of laughter. Now, both coming from Washington, D.C., each of these voices is muffled, but not very well. The first voice is of some timid Democrats promising to keep the federal government shut until Republicans add $700 billion more to the national debt. They want to hang tough, but they know they're between a rock and a hard place. The second voice comes from President Donald Trump and the Republicans as they watch their opponents present them with a political gift that will allow them to axe government bureaucrats a lot faster than they hoped. The shutdown began at midnight on October 1st of this year. And that was because Democrats refused any money if the GOP did not extend the COVID emergency subsidies. And keep in mind, these subsidies originally initiated during the COVID crisis, and let illegal immigrants go on Medicaid. This mess, that's the only way you can call it, is happening because the Democratic Party is hopelessly split. The leftists on Capitol Hill and its base around the country are demanding fights over anything and everything Trumps and Republicans try to do. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, is actually terrified of defying them because the last time he did so in March, when he voted with Republicans to fund the government, it outraged the radicals and then the radicals were calling for his head. So now he has led and many hotheads into a government shutdown. The Democrats' big problem, and his in doing this, however, is that the shutdown actually allows Budget Director Russell Vought, that's Vought, that's allowed, he's the chief financial axeman now. That's now that Elon Musk is back in the private sector. But that has allowed Russell Vought, the director of budgets, to sack the federal workers a lot more freely than he could when Washington was still running. Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican from Louisiana, told the Wall Street Journal that Vought has been thinking for his entire life and career about how to downsize the government. And the Office of Management and Budget Director met for talks with Trump on October 2nd to plan where the axe would chop first and where it would go next. Now, you can't forgive Speaker Johnson his shading of the truth when he also said, the president takes no pleasure in this. The president did not actually want a shutdown. Well, Schumer is already feeling pressure, not the least from Senate staffers who are working all around him. They were due to get paid originally on October 3rd, but now their checks, are not coming until the shutdown is officially over. Will their boss allow the shutdown to drag on so his aide's second paycheck goes missing? Well, we've already had two Democrats, possibly four. They've already voted in one of the many vote retries, you might say, and it's not going to. It won't be long before enough Democrats have been peeled away from Schumer before the shutdown actually gets shut down officially. Okay, folks. With that, let's take a quick look and before getting into some of the year-end plans that I'm reminding you about, because after all, we are, as I say, just a little bit, close to 6 weeks before the end of this tax filing year. And we'll be getting into some of the things that you might be reviewing, or this broadcaster will remind you about. And before getting into that, let's share an opinion about Social Security and Medicare. A lot of politicals have often said in private and in public that in planning the yearly annual budgets, they've considered Social Security and Medicare to be off the table for negotiation. And this article dated January 29th, way back in 2023, I'll just remind you about. The article is authored by Veronica De Rugby. That's I'm not going to try to pronounce or spell the first name, but the last name is DE separate, and then Rugby, RUGY, dated Sunday, January 29th of 2023, and entitled, "Why Should Social Security and Medicare Be Off the Table?" Well, most politicians, as you have noticed, have not even dared mentioning revising either of those programs, which would be the revisions which would be necessary to be able to even fund the programs at all. So why should they be off the table? Why should they not be part of the negotiation? Well, to be fair, the GOP's well-intentioned engagement in overall debt ceiling disputes is limited by short time Congress, the very short time the Congress has to raise the limit, all but ruling out credible reforms of Medicare or Social Security. Again, why aren't these things on the table? And most politicians are ruling out just about all possibly available and credible reforms of Medicare or Social Security. Reforming these two programs will take a lot of time and require a lot of bipartisan action. But this reality is no reason to assert that the program's benefits should never even be touched. Wow. This is really something. It's really disturbing to hear them say, "Oh, don't touch Social Security, Medicare," and for the Republican caucus to address 116 trillion over 30-year shortfall. That's 6% of our GDP for not facing up to these two programs. No action from Congress means no money to pay for all these benefits. That means enormous cuts will hurt the lower income seniors who truly depend on the programs. Now, of course, if Vice President Vance and friends insist on not touching benefits, they could address the Social Security and Medicare shortfalls with enormous tax hikes. For Social Security alone, when the trust fund does dry out, which they're promising it will dry out in about 1933, they'll have to immediately raise the payroll tax from 12.4% to 15.64%, or close to a 25% tax increase, folks. Did you hear that? Another 25% tax increase in order to address the Social Security and Medicare programs. And back in 2000, experts had already started warning that the Social Security Trust Fund would run out of assets by 2037. Well, that would trigger really painful benefit cuts. Today, the situation has deteriorated further. Now, with the trust fund now on track to run dry 2 years earlier in 2035. And really, when those trust funds do dry out, the closer we get to that time, the hope for fixing the problem gets even tougher. So, in other words, these problems shouldn't surprise anyone. Really, when the Social Security started back in the 1930s, I think it's 1930, in the mid 1930s. At that time, when it actually got started, life expectancies, of course, were a lot lower. Like in 1950, if you can use that as a benchmark, there were more than 16 workers for every beneficiary. 16 workers for every beneficiary. Now that ratio is now below 3 workers per retiree, and by 2035, approximately 8 years, 9 years from now, the ratio is going to be only 2.3 workers per retiree. Now, you add to this trend decades of politicians buying votes by expanding benefits beyond the incoming payroll taxes, and you have a true fiscal crisis on your hands. So that's why it's so alarming that it's alarming enough to see the Democrats that have given up on educating the public about the true situation of the trust funds for Social Security and the Medicare. But they, in addition to giving up on even discussing it publicly, you hear sound bites, political sound bites, like, quote, you earned your Social Security benefits, so you're entitled to the benefits now promised. Or there's an account, for example, with your name on it. This is misinformation. It's made serious discussion of any reform really tough. Now, there's no question that retirees deserve fair treatment. But the facts are that the Supreme Court in 1960, that is 65 years ago. In 1960, the Supreme Court ruled that workers do not have a legally binding right to Social Security benefits. Period. They don't have a legally binding right to Social Security benefits. And if Congress cuts benefits even by, say, 50%, it can do so no matter how much anyone is paid at the end of the program. It won't come to that, but the ruling still stands. It's also a fiction, it's not true, that all the benefits that had been promised were earned by workers. Well, they really weren't. Now, that's in part because current retirees are paid with taxes from current workers. Okay, so get that again, folks. The benefits are paid from taxes from current workers, not from the funds saved out of the payroll taxes retirees paid when they were in the workforce. So again, to repeat, it is a fiction that the benefits that have been promised were earned by the workers. Well, that's not the case, because the current retirees, they're getting paid with taxes from current workers, not from the funds that were saved out of payroll taxes retirees paid when they were actually in the workforce. So it's magical thinking to say that touching Social Security and Medicare is a non-starter. Medicaid should be reformed too, but at least that program serves poor people. By contrast, the seniors who receive Social Security and Medicare today, wow, they really are truly overrepresented in the top income quintile, while younger Americans are represented in the bottom quintile. So, the folks, the younger people just coming up now, they're overrepresented in the group that earn the less. So all of these politicians want to cut benefits for poor people on Medicaid, while subsidizing relatively wealthy boomers with taxes taken from relatively poor youngsters. Yikes. So here we have a current situation, when you really look at it, that the wealthy boomers today, they're taking taxes from the lower quintile, at least of the earning chart. Just keep that in mind, and we'll be glad to review some of those statistics if you call in and ask us to do another wrap up on why we should be publicly discussing the funding of Social Security and Medicare particularly. Okay, now it's time to review your year-end tax plans. We got we got about 6 weeks, less than 2 months now before the end of the tax year 2025. What are you doing with 6 weeks left during 2025? What are you doing? Um, which in substance will help your situation, will reduce your possible tax due or increase the amount that you would be able to get a refund for. So the opportunities that we'll share with you this morning, they're also matched with tax traps that you'll want to avoid. The first thing is it's really important to keep in mind the tax changes that have taken place in the One Big Beautiful Bill, the OBBB. It permanently, the OBBB permanently extends most tax provisions in the 2017 tax law. They were set to end after 2025, and the OBBB, One Big Beautiful Bill, enhances some and eliminates some of the energy credits. But the important thing is that many of those enhancements, you might say, in the One Big Beautiful Bill, you really do have to consult with your tax consultant or your CPA because a lot of those changes actually may not begin until our 2026 tax year begins. Many of them are some are taking place in 2025 and some are taking place or in 2026. So on individual tax planning for every taxpayer this year, you need to look at the overall impact on 2025 and 2026. You should look at both years at the same time. The goal is to reduce your federal income tax liability over both years, really not just over one. A lot of taxpayers will benefit tax-wise by accelerating the write-offs, speeding up those write-offs from next year, 2026, into this year, 2025, while deferring income in other situations. And others could consider the opposite approach. Contact your tax advisors to give you a rundown on what approach you should take. Itemizers, folks who are itemizing really do have a lot of opportunity to shift write-offs from one year to another, particularly, with the completion of the One Big Beautiful Bill signed by President Trump back on July 4th of this year. The first one is the SALT tax, SALT. What does that stand for? State and local taxes. And now that SALT deduction limitation on Schedule A has been greatly expanded up to $40,000. Has been $10,000 in prior years. And that was a limitation on the deduction of those state and local taxes. Well, that's been now, and certainly for 2025, has been greatly increased from $10,000, which was the case back in since 2017. Now it's beginning in 2025. The maximum state and local taxes that you can deduct on your Schedule A has been increased to $40,000. What about medical expenses? Well, if the medical costs you've incurred this year in 2025 have increased or are even near the 7.5% of adjusted gross income threshold, consider elective procedures before the end of the year. And consider you should review the list of eligible medical expenses. I myself have oftentimes just presume that those medical expenses have stayed the same for decades, but that's not the case. Many of those medical expenses have been brought and increased. For charitable gifts on this for deducting on for deductions on the Schedule A, you should or consider bunching in this year 2025 gifts, what you might usually give over multiple years. Give to a donor advised fund to help max out your charitable write-off. Contribute appreciated property. Do not donate assets that have fallen in value. Again, contribute appreciated property. Do not donate assets that have actually lost value. The folks who do not itemize, the non-itemizers, they can now, well, actually, they can, beginning in next year for 2026, they, in 2026, the tax writers have really made it possible for folks who do not itemize. You can deduct up to $1,000 of charitable cash gifts. Now that starts with the 2026, next year's 1040s that you would be filing in 2027. For that's for single persons, $1,000 of charitable cash gifts without itemizing. And for folks who are married, the amount is $2,000, starting in beginning with a taxable year 2026. So it makes it possible for folks who do not meet the threshold for really benefiting from your itemized deductions and don't use the Schedule A. Basically, you would be allowed to deduct for single people up to $1,000, and for married folks $2,000 for joint filers. Now, keep in mind that charitable deductions that are claimed on Schedule A, if you're itemizing, they are subject to a haircut. Now, they will only be deductible only to the extent that they exceed 0.5% of adjusted gross income. That's 0.5% of adjusted gross income. Now, if you're itemizing for this year, you could benefit more than ever by bunching all your charitable gifts into 2025. That is for charitable gifts made in 2025 and charitable gifts that you would ordinarily be making in 2026. And that's is done, and that figuratively speaking would be accomplished before the 0.5% of AGI hairline kicks in, before that limitation kicks in. So, but know this, now you can only deduct cash donations only to the extent that the total charitable gifts do not exceed 60% of your AGI. So keep that 60% figure in your head. The AGI limit for capital gain assets is generally 30%. And also keep in mind, if you can, that excess donations, if you cannot deduct them, on your tax return for any particular year at this point, you can carry the ones that you cannot deduct. You can carry the excess forward for about 5 years. For 5 years. Okay, so it's always vital to reduce the taxable income reported on your return by lowering or reducing your adjusted gross income is more important than ever. That's thanks to the OBBB, the One Big Beautiful Bill. Several new breaks begin to phase out at the modified adjusted gross income level over a certain amount. So there are these deductions. Keep in mind that One Big Beautiful Bill did provide a write-off for overtime pay, and keep in mind that the overtime pay is you can write off up to $12,500 of overtime pay on your 2025 tax return. And keep in mind that, remember, the tips, highly publicized tip write-off, you can write off up to $25,000 of tips, and up to $10,000 of car loan interest. That's if you are buying the car, folks. Does not apply to cars that you have leased, that you're leasing. So if you keep these things in mind, keep for folks who are retired, pay attention to the required minimum distribution rules for traditional IRAs. Folks who are 73 or over have to take annual payouts from the IRAs. Now, to arrive at the 2025 required minimum distribution amount, you have to start with your IRA balances as of December 31st of 2024, and use the tables in IRS publication 590-B. So those are the guiding tables. If 2025, if this tax year is your first required minimum distribution year, you will have until April 1st of next year to take the required minimum distribution. Now, if you opt to defer your first required minimum distribution to 2026, you will be taxed in 2026 on two payouts. First, the deferred one for 2025, and then the required minimum distribution for 2026. That certainly will increase your 2026 income. So again, owners 73 and older, they have to take annual payouts. To arrive at the 2025 required minimum distribution, you have to start off with your IRA balances as of December 31st, 2024, and use the tables in IRS publication 590-B. If 2025 is your first required minimum distribution year, you have until April 1st of 2026 to take the required minimum distribution. If you decide you want to defer your first required minimum distribution to the next year, to 2026, you'll be taxed in 2026 on two payouts. You'll be taxed on the deferred one for 2025 and the required minimum distribution for 2026. Okay, So, if you'd like to have that repeated again or gone into it in more depth, we'll be happy to accommodate you by contacting us at 951 522 9877 or sending an email with your requested question or comment to evjtax1 at gmail.com. Folks, many, this tax practitioner over the years, I can't tell you how many times that I've come up with tax balances due, and much of it is done because the your W-4 withholding arrangement, withholding form that you file with your employer, many times the federal tax withholding for the Fed and for the state are just simply not adequate or sufficient to pay for the taxes that you owe for the entire year. So we're hoping that this will help you avoid an underpayment penalty when you file your 2025 tax return. Now, if you may be off the hook for the penalty if you prepay, that is through these, which you've heard before, estimated tax payments that you've really just automatically thoroughly ignored. But you can do estimated tax payments, which will help increase the amount that has already been paid toward your liability for 2025. So now, as I say, you can avoid that if at the end of the year, either through tax payments, prepaid estimated tax payments, or through just regular withholding. If you have met that criteria for at least 90% of your total 2025 tax liability, or 100% of what you owed for the previous year, you're going to be off the hook for any kind of penalty. You should just in your head have a positive attitude to go into your employer asking for a new W-4 form to have more taxes taken from wages. And even if we're close to the end of the year, I'd recommend that you use whatever time you can now to hike the amount of money taken from your wages. And if you can possibly afford it, deduct with the remaining 6 weeks or so of pay, hike it up if you can possibly afford it. Do as much as you can to help meet what's going to be your total final liability for the year. You can keep in mind that you can have withholdings withheld not just from your wages, but you can withhold them from your Social Security wages also. And if you have a required minimum distribution liability from a traditional IRA, that's a regular IRA, not a Roth IRA. But you can have money withheld through those mechanisms. Okay, for folks who have or anticipate having sold capital gains, such as capital gains on the sale of a house that are more that exceed the exempted amount. Um, the They may not, some of your um, capital gain, results. They might not be taxed at the federal level, but they could be taxed at the state level. So keep that in mind. If you're not eligible for the 0% capital gains rate, there's always the 15% or 20% rate. So that's would not hopefully create too much financial damage. If you are looking for a tax break for energy efficient home improvements, two of the credits ending 6 weeks from now, the end of this year. So the heat pumps, exterior doors, windows, boilers, central air conditioning systems, that 30% residential clean energy credit is for taxpayers who install solar panels and the like in their residences. Both are repealed for property that's placed in service after December 31st, folks, of this year. Paying for the improvements before January 1st of next year simply is not enough to get a credit. You'll need to pay for them and also get them completed before the end of the year. Okay, folks, keep in mind that you still have the 20% deduction for qualified business income. The One Big Beautiful Bill made that deduction permanent. Self-employed folks and owners of LLCs, S corporations, and other pass-through can deduct up to 20% of their qualified business income, subject to the limits for joint filers with taxable income over $394,000 and $197,000 for single folks. Okay, I think what we will do is wrap it up for this week. Keep in mind that for businesses, they're still eligible to deduct up to $2.5 million of assets. And keep in mind that buyers of business vehicles get big tax breaks. If you sold a heavy SUV that's used solely for business, you can write off the full cost, and up to 100% of the cost of a big truck used in business can be expensed, subject to the rule that total expensing cannot exceed taxable income from the business. Okay, folks, I think this will wrap it up for this week, and we're looking forward to your questions and comments, but we're looking forward to your involvement in this program.
All right, Ev, thank you so much for that information. And guys, you can check out Ev each and every Wednesday. That's 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. on the East, noon Central, and 11 o'clock if you're in the Mountain Time Zone. So make sure you kick back and enjoy us tonight for Cultural Excellence Live here on The Buzz. I'll be spinning some of your greatest music and having some great commentary. All right, make sure you check us out, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, and also the app. If you have that Apple app, or if you don't have it, rather, go to your Apple App Store and download Studio W. Android, Studio W. That way you can take us with you all day, every day, home, gym, office, or play. Kick back, grab that glass, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Ev.
Thank you.
Give me the light.